Some people say that time travel is impossible. My response? Not if you have a recordable VHS tape. I've got a box full of them, and every one is like a little time machine, taking you back to a certain point in history when you just had to record something off the TV. Back in the early 2000s, I was a little young to work the video machine, so most of the time I had to ask my parents to record stuff for me, and some of these tapes are among my favourites. For instance, here's a tape full of Blue's Clues, or at least the UK version anyway, where the host was called Kevin instead of Steve.
Blue's Clues, Blue's Clues. We gotta find another paw print, that's the second clue. We put it in a note because the Who's Clues.
Blue's Clues!
No, I'm not making this up. Or how about this pile full of Robot Wars tapes? Some of my earliest memories involve watching these radio-controlled fighting machines battling it out to the death and leaving the arena in pieces. But today I'm going to talk about these, the Cartoon Network tapes. When it comes to kids' TV, Cartoon Network is probably my favourite childhood channel, so these tapes are like the holy grail to me. I have a bunch of them, and just looking at some of these tapes almost tells a story in itself. Like, remember all those stickers that came with these blank tapes? I just try to stick on as many of them as I could, even if they didn't make any sense. Like, what does big A100 mean? Beats me. And of course you had to make a note of how much recording time you had. E180 meant 3 hours, E240 meant 4 hours. How exciting. And here's a tape made by Mitsubishi. Yeah, Mitsubishi, the car company. I always found that weird. There's a lot I could say about all of these tapes, but for now, let's just focus on this one, the Cartoon Network Variety. The label says it was recorded in 1999, but that was just me being a stupid 10-year-old and writing down the year I thought this tape came from. Fortunately, I do have another brain cell now, and I can reliably confirm this tape was recorded in January of 2001, so let's take a trip back into the past of kids' TV. The tape starts off right in the middle of a Looney Tunes short. It's interesting how back then these old cartoons could be mixed in with shows that we knew at the time, so one minute you're watching a Bugs Bunny short from the 1960s, and the next you have a promo for an anime like Tenchi Muyo. It's a healthy mix of animation styles that you just don't see anymore, and it's kind of a shame. Also, you have to love the dark sense of humour in these shorts, like Porky Pig being forced to compete in this deadly game show by Daffy Duck, which ends with Daffy getting tied up to the spinning soul blade. It's my kind of twisted. Next up, Tom and Jerry. Cartoon Network still had a pretty keen focus on classic cartoons around this time, with the sister channel, Boomerang, only being less than a year old back then. It's almost redundant to say some of these cartoons are the absolute best, like T for Two, which we always called the golf one, featuring some of the best slapstick moments. And the Hollywood Bowl not only has a great musical set piece for the comedy violence, with Jerry sliding in and out of all these musical instruments, but also an amazing classical score as well. They just don't make them like they used to. The Flintstones is on next. It's almost weird to see this again because it was on all the time, but I haven't sat down and watched it in years. Actually, it's interesting to note that when it first debuted in 1960, The Flintstones was intended to be an animated sitcom for both kids and adults, similar in style to something like The Simpsons, but watching it again, it seems so innocent now. It's just a routine sitcom plot with Fred being forced to look after a baby, but it actually leads into Wilma revealing that she's pregnant at the end, setting up the introduction of their daughter, Pebbles, later in the series.
It's true, folks. The Flintstones are gonna have a baby. And I want everybody in the whole wide world to know it.
I guess for 1963, this must have been one jaw-dropping cliffhanger. Now let's take an interlude to talk about the adverts. These are a big part of recordable tapes, and they just take you straight back to that time, like ads for holidays, cereal, and even a competition where you could win a PlayStation 2. But the weird thing is that 90% of the ads are all for things like loan services and insurance. Like, what does any of that have to do with cartoons? I guess it's because ad space was probably cheaper on kids' TV channels, But even so, this stuff ended up sticking in my head more than it did for my parents. Like Direct Line, that company was like a disease when it came to these ads. I had to take out my first insurance policy with them at age 7.
Don't just sit there. Call Direct Line now and see how much money you could save.
Then there's some other weird stuff, like remember when popcorn chicken only just came out at KFC?
My new crispy popcorn chicken. Real tender chicken with a crispy coating in handy bite-sized pieces. Hey, how's that for finger-licking chicken you can pop in your mouth?
Remember when that cleaning product Cif was originally called Jif? I guess they needed an ad to explain that one.
It proved difficult.
Ne diyorsun sen Allah aşkına ya?
Same great cleaning with a new international name.
And remember all the ads for girls' toys like Barbie and Cindy? I end up remembering them more than the boys' ones, just because they always had these annoying jingles. Ugh. Then there's that infamous ad where a girl has to choose between her dad and oven chips, so of course she picks the chips.
Noodles. Because they're cut from 100% Maris Piper potatoes,
Chips.
McCain oven chips are the obvious choice.
Or that ad for mattresses where a giant hippo somehow ended up marrying a duck.
In America, where you from? You sexy thing.
Don't ask me how that relationship got started.
Sleep tight.
Have a silent night.
This one kind of drove me crazy though, an ad for chocolate cereal bars, with this cow blasting away at boxes of cornflakes to make them all chocolatey.
Just got a special gadget that helps him make chocolate milk. So now he's fusing chocolate milk with Kellogg's cornflakes.
It wasn't the cereal bar I wanted, it was the chocolate milk gun. How come that was never a toy growing up?
Introducing new Kellogg's cornflakes cereal and chocolate milk bars. When hunger hits,
Speaking of cereal, I definitely remember this one for the variety pack, which had 8 boxes of cereal in one tasty package.
Variety comes in packs of 8, but which one to have often leaves me in a state.
I used to love those things so much, that's why I used to write variety on these Cartoon Network tapes. Sometimes I wonder about my 10-year-old self.
Kellogg's Variety. Get your hands on all 8.
But that's enough about ads, so let's move on to our next show, which is Fat Dog Mendoza. Oh boy. If SpongeBob SquarePants was just too realistic for you, then Fat Dog Mendoza is here to give you all the trippy imagery you can ask for. It's almost hard to even explain any of this. It's like overdosing on heroin and cocaine at the same time while suffering from a bout of food poisoning to go with it. But I'll try my best to make sense of it. Basically, Fat Dog Mendoza was a short-lived co-production between Cartoon Network Europe and a company called TMO Loonland, as part of a 2-series production deal. The other show in that deal was the Cramp Twins, but maybe I'll talk about that another time. Apparently, the show was based on a one-off Dark Horse comic book, telling the adventures of an oddly shaped overweight dog, Fat Dog Mendoza, and his little costumed buddy, who was actually called Little Costumed Buddy. Yeah, weird. Despite being a European co-production, most of the cast came from Canada, so I guess this is what the voice actors from Ed, Edd and Eddy must have worked on in their lunch break, because an awful lot of them crop up in this show. As for the plot of this episode, Little Costumed Buddy starts going crazy over this new pair of boots that he really wants to buy, so he has to do a bunch of ridiculous chores in order to get them, while Fat Dog takes on an office job.
Mr. Mendoza, my people tell me you're doing a bang-up job, and I just want you to know we all appreciate it. But the cafeteria has brought something to my attention. It says here Mr. Mendoza ate 49 meatloaf sandwiches, 58 fish fillets, 122 pudding cups, and a ham. Mendoza, how long have you been with the company now?
4 hours, sir.
Meanwhile, their evil nemesis, Doc Rectangle, is desperate to get his hands on the boots himself, and tries robbing a truck full of the things so he can somehow rule the world with his monkey minions. If you understood any of that, congratulations, you're officially insane. Perhaps it's obvious this show was too bizarre for its own good, and it didn't even air in the US, which is really saying something. In the end, I remember this show being restricted to late night TV only, and post 2005, you'd be lucky to find anyone who has any memory of this. It's clearly real, and I still feel like it's a bad fever dream, so yeah, we'd better press on. Mike, Lou and Og is next, and it's actually a series that was part of the exclusive Cartoons Club, but definitely one of the more obscure shows on the list. It's almost like Ed, Edd and Eddy if they were trapped on a desert island and two of them were girls, so maybe not much like it at all then. So you have Mike, played by Nika Futterman, who's sort of like the streetwise tomboy girl.
Good try, Nature Boy. You want to win? You gotta focus.
There's Lou, played by Nancy Cartwright of Bart Simpson fame, a snooty islander who always wants to be a princess.
No, Her Royal Highness is not coming with, as you say. Her Royal Highness is busy sitting on her throne.
And finally, there's Og, voiced by D. Bradley Baker. I like Og the best because he's smart enough to build his own Game Boy on this island and becomes so addicted to playing it that he neglects all life around him. That's my boy. There's a very relaxed pace to this show where nothing all that exciting really seems to happen. There's a big flood and occasionally some pirates chase after them, but the problems are usually solved fairly quickly, and it just feels very laid back. I remember this being another one that was only shown at about 2 in the morning after a while, but it actually seemed to suit that time more, especially if you had trouble sleeping back then like I did, and had to sneak downstairs to watch Cartoon Network. It was oddly soothing in a way. Next on the schedule is ScoobyDoo, or to be more specific, an episode of the ScoobyDoo show. In fact, it was the very last episode of this particular series, being aired on December 23rd, 1978, so I guess you could technically call this a season finale. If it is though, it isn't really the best one, being your standard Scooby-Doo plot in pretty much every form. Mystery Inc. arrive in a weird place, there's a monster running about, Scooby and Shaggy escape the monster, they set a trap that doesn't work, and yep, it was just a woman in a suit all along. She doesn't even say anything when she gets caught. No curses, no "you meddling kids." Ugh, can we watch Zombie Island now? I suppose before the final show I should talk a little about the promos too. Cartoon Network definitely had its own unique identity, and they even tried to make their promo special as well, like this one for the Powerpuff Girls that parodies Charlie's Angels.
Once upon a time, there were 3 beautiful girls, Blossom, Bubbles, and Buttercup, who went to Pokey Oaks kindergarten, and they were each assigned hazardous crayon drawing duties. But I took them away from all that, and now they work for me.
Or this one for Ed, Edd and Eddy, which has a narrator who sounds kind of like Ali G.
Head downtown and impress your mates with a tattoo. Keeping it real with Ed, Edd and Eddy every day at 4:30 p.m. on Cartoon Network, the best place for new tunes.
Ed Downtown, yeah, I get it. Then there were all these weird ones that were less like promos and more like small shorts, like Velma holding up the gang because she can't find her socks, which is somehow more entertaining than the episode which was just on.
I'm not leaving without my orange socks.
And then there's this promo for I Am Weasel where the baboon is just rubbing his buttocks against the TV screen. Maybe I should stop reading into this and just move on to the next segment. The last show on the tape is Dexter's Laboratory, and this is definitely one of my absolute favourites. I used to watch this show all the time, and the early seasons still hold up even now. There isn't too much of Dexter himself in these episodes though, since, for some reason, they focus on his dad. But he does hold his own as a character, so it doesn't really matter that much. The first episode is Dad is Disturbed, where he's desperate to watch this golf game on TV, but the family keep getting in his way all the time. It's actually pretty funny how extreme he gets to stop people from bothering him, even to the point of tying up Betty from the Flintstones, who apparently lives next door.
See you around the holidays, Betty.
I always found that weird, honestly, like, it even ends with him sitting next to Barney. What kind of crossover is this? The next episode is the Old Switcher Rooms, where Dad wins a giant bowling trophy, only for Dexter and Dee Dee to smash it into pieces, so he punishes them by sending them both into each other's rooms.
So this time, you're not going to your own rooms. Oh no. You're going to each other's rooms instead.
I remember this being quite a tense and exciting plot, actually. Dexter is paranoid that Dee Dee is smashing up his lab, he's about to stage an escape, Dad is right there and... Wait, what? No! No! And that, my friends, is why recordable tapes are a double-edged sword. You get 3 hours of recording, but when your time is up, your time is up. So now we'll never know if Dexter managed to escape with his life intact. Oh well, so there you have it, the Cartoon Network variety tape from 1999 that isn't really 1999, but whatever, I was stupid. Like I said, each one of these tapes really is like a time machine, and I'm glad there's still a way we can experience all these shows, promos and ads that just aren't around anymore. They have to be preserved somehow, and it's all thanks to these little black recordable tapes. Thanks for watching this video, and look out for more trailer reels coming soon. Are you enjoying the series? Do you have any thoughts? What tapes would you like to see covered next? Let me know in the comments. Remember, you can vote for upcoming episodes in the community tab, and please like and subscribe to the Back to the Past YouTube channel for more outdated content coming soon.